I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way.
And then we went on our way. We went down to Guadalcanal and worked our way up to where we were going. And then we hit on September 17th, 1 week before I was 18 years old, we hit Paledú, and the Marines lost 80% at Paledú. My brother was there with me. He took the Marines, and he was in the Army, but he was in a duck outfit, and he took the Marines in, and we were there. And then 2 days later, we hit Angar, which is an island. Paledú has got a lot of mountains on it, so Angar, the next little island, is flat, and they wanted to use it for the B-29s because it's halfway to Japan from Tinian, where down in Guadalcanal, down near Guadalcanal. Tinian is where the B-29s flew out of, and I think it was a 12-hour flight to Tokyo and back. So they wanted to get halfway, and that's what that island was, Angar, but they never used it. Finally, I think the Iwo is about halfway between Tinian and the island of Tinian, which is down near Guadalcanal, and Tokyo. So those B-29s had to fly like 12 hours to get a round trip to get up to Japan and bomb them and come back and make it away. So a lot of them got shot up pretty bad, so they wanted a field for them to come into. Finally, when they took Iwo, which is in February the 19th of the next year, 45, that gave them a halfway base where if they got in trouble, they could land there. But the trouble was, at Iwo Jima, it's a small island, and it was hard for them to stop those B-29s because they're pretty huge, you know.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of Pearl Harbor, where were you or what were you doing in December of 41 when that took place?
Well, on the way out, you mean?
Well, just, when that happened, what were you doing? You obviously weren't in the Navy at that time, right?
Oh, no. I was only 17. I went in when I was 17 years and 1 month. When I was old enough, when I was 17, I signed up, and it took me a month to get in. And so I got in October of 43. That was 43. And then I went to boot camp, and then I went to gunnery school, and then I went to the LST. But I signed it as soon as I was able, as soon as I was 17, I signed it. But it took me a month to get in because of there's a lot of patriotic people, and there was a lot of people ahead of me. So I got in October of 1 month after I was 17. I was 17 on the 24th of September. And it took a month to get the paperwork and things. In those days, they had... one of the ratings, Navy ratings, was a chief recruiter during that time because the need was so bad, and that's what this guy was that signed me up.
Yeah.
It was interesting. As soon as I was 17, I signed up in 43, and of course, like I said, I had to wait 2 months to get picked up, taken in. Because they had a rating for that at time. They had a recruiter rating, which you never heard of before or afterwards. The chief recruiter signed me up, and that's all he did was recruit people, and that was his job.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
you also said in your letter about how you guys weren't allowed to have cameras, but the lieutenant did there, and he... Yeah. So I was always wondering where all those pictures came from. I guess 10 cents a piece, that was probably pretty expensive back then, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah. I only made $50 a month. Well, $54 when I made Seaman First. When I got in, I was only making $50, and then Seaman First, after you graduated from boot camp or school or whatever it was, you made an extra $4. I got $54, and that's all I made through the war. I don't think we made C-pay. We may have paid C-pay. They do now, I know, but I don't remember if I did or not.
Right.
But $50 is not a whole lot of pay, is it?
No, of course.
Cigarettes were only 5 cents a pack.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is the dollar has lost quite a bit of its value since, 44.
Yeah, cigarettes were 5 cents a pack.
Yeah, I mean, how much, did you buy your first house for? I mean, you can buy a car for that probably now.
No, the first house I bought was what did I pay? $10,000. I still have it. Oh, that's over in Newport News. That's over in another city.
Where your first house was?
Yeah. That's about 20 miles, 30 miles away.
Yeah. I'm a little bit familiar with that area from when I.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's over in Hampton. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was at school out there.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yep. Boy, Tom, your mind's pretty sharp. I think your mind's a little sharper than mine, and I'm only 35. What's your secret?
Clean living, I guess.
There you go.
My mother lived to 103, and her sister lived to 107. And I still play golf twice a week. Yeah. Thursday or Friday. I'll play tomorrow too. I hope the weather's good. And it has been good. We're getting up in the 80s now. We're 80 today, I think. I see some bad tornadoes out there. Looking at the news tonight, some bad tornadoes out in the Midwest. Yeah,
there has been.
Yeah.
Of course, Joplin, just an hour from here, got it real bad last year. You probably remember that. But
yeah.
That tornado land here, so.
Yeah, well, I went to school one time out in Kansas, and that was tornado country too. I went to ground control approach school. I'd never had any shore duty, let's see, I got off. I guess I took I put the Ranger in commission here in Norfolk, and we took it around to the West Coast. We took it around Tierra del Fuego. We stopped in Rio and all the places in Venezuela, or in Lima, Peru, and Acapulco, and all the way up. And I took it, and I'd never had any shore duty in all that time. And so finally I put in for it. So they sent me to school for ground control approaches, which is what the commercial people use, and we use it too for ground control approach. And I went to Olathe, Kansas on that, and then from there I got some good schooling out of it, and a lot of math out of it, because I only went to the 9th grade at school, and when I went to electronic school, I got quite a bit of education out of that. But then when I got into ground control approach, I was working at NAS Norfolk, and I also had the seaplane. I had a radar unit for seaplanes, landing seaplanes. And then one day they called me and they says, "Tom, can you be in the Great Lakes Monday morning? We got another school." I said, "Oh yeah," but I had a lot of math in that school, and then I had a year of shore duty. That's the only shore duty I had, and they say, "We need you in Bell Aerospace up in Buffalo, New York, North Tonawanda," and I got into this ground control approach is what I did. I went from there, I went to the Independence, and I retired off the Independence, and then they all hired me immediately, and I became a tech rep with them. And then I went to sea right away, because I had the experience and I knew the system, and so they kept me at sea pretty much. And then when the America went in commission, I rode her for 2 years as a tech rep, and that was. Well, you were so busy. I was so busy. We fly half the night, and you had to work the system up in the daytime if you had troubles, and then you slept in the daytime what you could. I didn't sleep much. I was a 20-hour day worker. I made sure things were always right, and it was. I did 2 years on there, so that was quite an experience, really.
Pretty intense, I bet.
Yeah. We had so much time. So we made a 9-month cruise, and then we were back in 3 months, and we made another 9-month cruise. So 2 9-month cruises back to back because one of the other carriers couldn't do it or something. So I made 2 mid cruises, with 3 months in between, 3 months at home. So, but the money was good, and I got a lot of. Of course, I had a lot of experience then, so I was pretty good shape,
Now, who were you working for at that time?
Bell Aerospace. They make the Helos, and they make the VS-22s, and they make all kinds of things. They make Cessna airplanes, and they make the mowing equipment for most of the golf courses, and they make all kinds of things. Yeah, so I bought. Every month I would buy stock from them, and so I got quite a bit of stock out of it. So I got it's just stacked away. I don't need it. I don't use it, but I get stock. I get options from it all the time.
Sure.
So it helped me very much, and I spent so much time. I was away all the time, like that 2-year period. I was gone for, golly, 2 9-month cruises back to back with 3 months in between. That's kind of tough, really. I mean, the Cold War was on then too, and all that. So you got the Russians and everything else. I mean, that's why we were doing that. Why they were doing that. So they had to. So I had to keep going, but they paid me for being there, and I drew my pay, and then they paid me also a per diem for being there every day, and I think it gave me $11 or something a day, and so that added up quite a bit, So
sure.
I had a lot of stock with them, so it worked out pretty good, but I spent all my time away,
One other thing in the article he was talking about was intense, memory about, or the place that he'd never forget was, of course, the Battle of Lady Gulf, there in the Philippines.
Oh yeah.
What do you remember about that? Were you on the Higgins boat at that time, or?
Yeah. We made 3 of them there in the Philippines. We made Lingayen, Tacloban, and San Narciso. San Narciso was up near where Corregidor was, and we made 3 of them. We liberated. The president of the Philippines gave me a medal for that. I've got a Presidential Unit Citation from that. Well, all of us did from that ship. Presidential Unit Citation from the President of the Philippines. I thought that was pretty nice. Yeah, so we, that was kind of tough. But I think one of the worst ones was that I could never understand why the good Lord would let us go into Okinawa. We did that on April 1st. It was Easter Sunday, and I just, I just didn't understand how the good Lord would let us do that and fight and kill on Easter Sunday. That kind of bothered me a little bit. I just never understood that, but I didn't make those decisions, but it seemed funny. And then we made that on the 1st of April, and then there's a little island next to that. It's called Aishima.
Sure.
Which is where Ernie Pyle. Did you ever hear Ernie?
Yeah. Isn't that his resting spot when he killed there?
Yeah. We were there about 1,000 yards from where we were, and I couldn't understand that. But they wanted that because these at that time the Japanese were getting very desperate, and they had the planes that were the Kamikazes, and they had the radar picket ships out there. The destroyers were our radar. Well, they're a faster ship than they're smaller, but they had the radars on. A lot of them did. Most of them did, and they were radar pickets, and they'd go out there and they would come in with nothing above the waterline. I mean, everything bombed out, burned out, crashed. I mean, the Kamikazes and the Baka bombs that they made they were enemy. They were Japanese bombs, is what they were, and they just guided them, and they killed so many of those. They hit so many of those tin cans out there, destroyers. They were radar pickets, and that's what they wanted it for. So I have a whole bunch of pictures of ships coming in with nothing above the waterline, and
wow.
And half of it where the main deck is below the waterline and banged up and shot up and oh, what a terrible mess. And I've got some pictures of that in one of the books that I bought, and it just, you wonder how people could ever think to do that, but
sure.
That's the way the war was. It was a test of the wills, and I mean, they were desperate at that point, and
sure.
I guess they had no choice but to protect themselves, and and it wasn't right, but they did what they thought was right, I suppose. I had a brother, one of my older brothers, he was married. He had 4 children during the beginning of the war, and finally they called him in, and he got into the occupation forces in Japan, and they shipped him to Nagasaki, and that's where he was stationed, and they had to live off the land pretty much, and like vegetables and things. And some years later, my mother called me, and she said, well, if you want to see John, you'd better come home because he's not going to make it. And he was in the hospital then. It was from that, from living there, and they had to eat off the land, like I say, with the vegetables, I suppose. And he was in the occupation force with the Army, and so he didn't make it, and that was kind of tough. He was married, he had 4 children, so he didn't have to come in during the fighting, so to speak. But he was in the occupation. They called him up in the occupation, and he didn't last too long after that. That was kind of sad.
Yeah, definitely.
Great deal, yeah. But we used to go after we went into Japan. We were in Okinawa, in Yokohama on September 2nd, 1945, when they signed the treaty. The Missouri was in, of course, and that's where they signed it, but we were in the harbor. And then after that, we took fuel. We took the 11th part of the 11th Air Force up to Otaru, up Otaru, which is up in Hokkaido, which is northern island, and that's where Otaru is where they had the Olympic Games back in the 20s or the 30s or something. So it's ski area and cold weather. But the 11th Air Force was up there. We used to take fuel, particularly, 55-gallon drums, and that's high octane. That's 155 octane, and it would be so rough, and it would break loose, and it would be all over the ship, and we'd just push them over the side so we wouldn't catch on fire, But it was cold, and we'd been down in the jungle so long, and our foul weather gear, we probably threw it over the side because we weren't going to need it. God, we got up there, and it was terrible. But we had it all chained down on deck in 55-gallon drums, and those chains would break loose. And first thing you know, you had them bouncing around, and we threw, I don't know, however many. With the loose ones, you had to throw them over the side so you didn't get it. But I read a lot of books later about that, and it said that a lot of that territory we were going through was mined heavily, and we didn't even know it, So
oh, man.
That's life, so we were lucky.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I wish you could meet this guy, Leon Klein. He's something. He's special. He's a German, and he's got an accent, and he's pure as the driven snow. He's just a wonderful man, and him and I are the best of friends. And he's struggling now, but he sounded better. I talked to him a couple of days ago. He sounded a little better, but he's had so much trouble. It's tough. But I keep in touch with him, and him and I are pals and buddies and all that. Yeah, wonderful man. If you saw him, you'd be amazed. You couldn't help but like him to begin with. Well, everybody likes him, and he's just a wonderful person and hard worker. And he's one of his sons. One of his sons got his doctorate. I think he's got 30 doctorates. He's not a doctor. He's got doctorates.
Sure.
I think he was into safety and things like that. And he's got 30 PhDs or doctors working under him. Can you imagine that? And he started with nothing like Leon did. Well, what a wonderful thing. Yeah. Great. But one of his sons has a garage up there, and Leon would normally, if he's well, he stays with him because he sits over the corner and he helps him do with the phone or whatever. But he's more for security than anything else because today's world you can't trust anybody, So now he can't do it. He can't go down to his son's garage and help him and just be with him whatever. But that's a shame. It really is. I've been trying to get up to see him, and I'm going. And Memorial Day, I go to Connecticut and march in a parade because I had 4 brothers that served, and I've got quite a few medals. And some of the people that I marched with in the parade, they didn't do much in World War II, and you think that they won the war. So I put all my medals on. I do them, I shouldn't think like that, but I just can't help it. I know there's a few of them that you think they had won the war, and one of them was an air traffic controller in Rio de Janeiro, and
sure.
So I put all my medals on, and he'd ankle down. I have 11 medals, so I kind of stick it to him, and that's the only time I've got any. I don't have any bad thoughts in my mind, but I just stick it to him, and my attitude, I suppose. I was listening to some music. I have a lot of discs that I put on a computer, and I just sit there and listen to music, and sometimes I play solitaire just to keep myself busy. But I have a lot of good music that I like. I like jazz, and I don't like freaky music or younger music, I suppose. But I have a lot of jazz and a lot of band stuff, big band stuff, and I kind of enjoyed that. So I sat there and listened to that. And that's what I was doing. Yeah. Well, back when I was about 14, 15 years old, we only lived about 50 miles from New York City, and I used to go down to see Frank Sinatra. I saw Frank Sinatra when he first opened at the Palace in New York City, and we used to go down, catch the bus, and go down and spend the weekend in a hotel. A hotel was only like $15 or something, and we'd go down and see all the big bands, Benny Goodman and all of them, and that's what that era, that music that I really like, because it's kind of refreshing.
Sure.
And that's what I have. So I have so many discs of those things, and I put them on, and I play solitaire or something. That's what I do in the evening now, and I just kill time. And I go to bed 10 or something like that, I suppose, whenever I get ready. Yeah, I got a lot of Pete Fountain. I've got Benny Goodman, and I got all of the old. Mostly of them are old stuff, but it's kind of relaxing music for me, and that's good. And I got some playing in there now, and I play solitaire or something. I read the news, and then play solitaire, and then just get ready to go to bed. The reason I do that, when I retired, retired finally. My mother was very old, and I went up took care of her and up in Connecticut. So I was alone. I mean, her and I was the only one, and that's what I did. I got a lot of music then, and that was I left up there in 1000. She died in 2000, and then I stayed there for a couple of more years, and I sold out and came back down here where the weather's a little better, play a little more golf. There for me then, so I've been lucky, and I don't, the good Lord's been good to me. Well, thanks for calling. I appreciate your call, I really do.